Hey guys, we are here at Audio Advice with Scott Noonan. Scott, it's always a pleasure hanging out with you.
Michael, it's great seeing you again, yeah. You're obviously up here for Audio Advice Live, and just like we did last year, like, hey, let's shoot some videos. And so we decided, hey, let's shoot this brand new theater in the Raleigh showroom that we've completely redone and just talk about some cool stuff, because I know a lot of your viewers, they just love when you and I are talking about theaters and so forth.
Yeah, this is your best theater. This is your high-end theater. It's got some cool toys. We're going to talk about that, but we're going to talk about a lot of the technology that went into this room as well.
Yeah, so I think the best place to start is the screen.
Yeah.
Because this room, as you saw earlier, we've got 4 rooms where when people come to the Raleigh showroom, they can start in a smaller room, work their way to a bigger room like this. Yeah. But this used to have like a 140-some inch screen in it. And as we've done all of our work with customers, we've concluded the same thing you have, which is all of those angles that used to be THX or SMPTE or all these angles, they don't mean anything anymore. Yeah. People want really immersive. So we went full
look at this.
wall-to-wall screen. This is a 186-inch diagonal. It's a 2.4 screen. And I'll tell you what, people sit in the middle. It breaks all the rules in terms of angles.
Correct.
And everybody loves it.
Yeah, they want to sit here. They don't ever move back there. They don't ever go to the very back. They want that full immersive, because then that brings you into the movie.
Yeah, so more and more people are doing it like that. What I thought we might do is then talk about the video that's coming into this, and then maybe we'll cover some of the audio, just start walking through, and just really have a fun time with it.
All right, Scott, we're standing in front of a beautiful projector. Tell us what you got going on here.
Yeah, so this is a Sony 7000 ES projector, which has about 3,200 lumens, which is perfect for the screen, but increasingly, people want to max out the lumens.
Sure.
So I'm going to pause really briefly and talk about just strategy in terms of putting together the video in a theater. This has what we call the sort of triumvirate, which is we got 3 things going on. We have a high-performance projector combined with a Panamorph lens and a Mad VR. Yeah. And it's those 3 things when they come together that really take you to another level. And so maybe we'll break them down one by one.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know what a lens, we've got a lens physically in front of a projection lens. What are some of the benefits? Why would somebody want to add that?
Yeah, so what happens is when you have a 2.4 screen like this, and you have a projector, the projectors are natively not putting out 2.4.
Correct.
So what's happening is when you're watching 2.4, you're losing a significant amount of the pixels that are basically black above the screen and black below the screen. What happens with this anamorphic lens, or Panamorph, is it will actually stretch it, and you can digitally tell the projector to use all of the, let's say, 16 by 9 pixels. Right. The Panamorph will then put it back into position. Yeah. So when you're watching 2.4, you use all the light and all the pixels from the projector.
Yeah, and I think from my understanding, there's varying opinions on what that is, but it's like 20, sometimes 30% increase of brightness.
Yeah, so generally you think about 25% is what you're picking up. And there's debate because as you're going through another piece of glass. But what makes it really cool, usually if you get a projector and you do a Panamorph lens on it, what happens is you have a choice to choose, am I doing 16 by 9 or 2.4, and then the software will adjust for one of the 2. Yeah. That's where the Mad VR comes in.
Correct.
So the Mad VR actually can sense every single aspect ratio. And then you tell the Mad VR when you set the Mad VR up that you're using a Panamorph lens, and it will automatically adjust for every single thing perfectly using that lens. Always
fills the screen. It's always a beautiful image. Always have that immersive experience that we were talking about earlier.
That's right. And actually getting to like really, really detail, a Panamorph lens can have just a little bit of barrel distortion on the edges that honestly, 99% people will never ever see it.
I wouldn't notice.
If you're really geeky into this, and obviously I'm like really into this stuff, I could see it a little bit there. You take that Mad VR Extreme and it takes the barrel distortion out and it just looks perfect.
Nice.
Yeah. So anyways, that's the video setup in the room. Okay, so first I'm just going to walk you through the rack itself, and then Michael, you and I are going to sit down and we can just talk about some of the things going on. So obviously we've got our network switch, Control 4, so that we've got, easy one remote control of everything. Got all our JBL synthesis amps, the Trinnov, which I'm going to talk more about in a second, and then the Mad VR we talked about. But you'll see, we try to make the rack look really good. We'll get a picture of the back of it. You guys can see what a good job our guys do wiring it. So let's sit down and just talk a little bit about the Trinnov in particular.
All right, Scott, you mentioned the Trinnov. This is a large format room. This is a large layout. So we've got an 11.4.4 Dolby Atmos system. That takes a special processor to handle all those speakers, but the Trinnov offers some other flexibility. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the Trinnov and why it's used here. So for most people that are really into this stuff, they know the Trinnov is the creme de la creme of processors. I mean, it is the best in the world. And so often people will ask, if they're doing a theater, what is it that makes that the best? And so we'll just talk about a few of the concepts here. The first thing is this. And I'm going to back up to how Dolby Atmos and DTS:X Pro and all these guys make their code. They make something that's called the golden code. And that golden code is essentially the software code that they write to tell it how to play Atmos out. They then distribute that code, they give it to chip manufacturers. So let's take Texas Instruments as an example. Texas Instruments will look at the code and they will try to make a chip.
Yeah.
And that chip is trying to simplify that code to make it so that it could work in everything from your least expensive receiver to your most expensive, everything in between. But so it's basically standardized on a chip, and they got to sell a lot of the chips to make the math work.
Sure.
So what happens is most manufacturers buy that chip, and that's how you get the decoding of all the surround sound formats.
Right.
But not Trinnov. What Trinnov does is they actually use a Linux-based processor in their processors, and they take the golden code and they implement the golden code exactly as it's received. So it is identical. So there's no watering it down or anything else. So that's sort of step one, making it better.
Sure.
That also allows them to do some other interesting things, which is when a new format comes out. So as an example, when someone had Dolby before Dolby Atmos came out.
Right.
For most people, if you had a receiver, you had to go buy a new one.
You go sell it, you give it away to your son or whoever, and then you go spend more money investing in a new processor.
That's right, but not with Trinnov. They give a then free software upgrade, and because they're implementing the golden code in it, they simply upgrade it, and all of a sudden people had Atmos.
Yeah.
And they're doing the same thing, and so I think this is the other part that makes it. A Trinnov is an expensive processor.
It is.
Let's just call it what it is.
Sure.
It's an expensive processor. But unlike everything else you're not handing off, they don't just do that in the code, they also do it with the hardware.
Right.
So for everyone that wanted HDMI 2.1, you literally get the new board now, put the new board in, and so you're buying basically a platform that lasts, and it really makes the Trinnov a pretty cool processor.
Yeah, for sure. And another really cool thing is their room correction software, and I'm looking at a kind of funky thing over here. Tell us a little bit about that.
So we had to have a little show and tell. So, we do every major brand of processor and receiver out there. And, there's varying types of microphones. But if you look at the vast majority of mics out there, they set up like this and they have one mic.
Yeah.
You can see this has multiple mics on it. Now, why does that matter? For virtually everyone else, what happens is when you do room correction, it is measuring the distance to each speaker.
Okay,
It's
right.
basically what's going on.
Yep.
What this does is it not only knows the distance, it knows the exact location of every speaker. Now, why does that matter? You've played around, I think you did a really cool video before with one of our guys, Nick, showing our home theater design tool.
Correct.
And we make that free to people, and it shows people exactly, it does all the calculations.
Yeah.
So exactly, it does your mathematical angle calculations to where the Atmos speaker should be and everything else. But what happens if you have a joist?
Right.
Right
Yeah.
where those are supposed to be.
You got to move it either forward or backwards.
And that happens in every theater. Every single theater,
Yep.
something is not going to be exactly where the math would tell you.
Yeah.
This actually knows exactly where it is, and so it builds a profile of the room. So if you have a plane flying through here, it knows where every single speaker is. So where we're sitting here, you not only have the front three, we've got a front wide, and it knows where that wide is.
Right.
It knows how to play it. The other thing that, because it's mapped the room, if you've got like Aura 3D or different surround sound formats that require you to have speakers in a location that you actually don't have a speaker.
Right.
So like let's say right above you.
Sure.
It can simulate it above you because it knows where every single speaker is.
Nice.
So these are the things that make the Trinnov just the best of the best of the best. And again, it's generally not for price sensitive people. It's people that go,
Sure.
I want the best. But that's what we show off in this room.
All right, Scott. So in most home theaters, we see these big, massive panels, 2 foot by 4 foot. We see some diffusion where they're kind of protruding from the wall. We don't see that in this room. So tell us about the acoustic treatment here.
Yeah, so this is known as the audio advice look. People talk about that around the country or see it. You will have seen this in some of the videos we've done in a lot of our designs. But we think this is a very beautiful modern design. We do different versions of it. But the gist of it is we hide the absorptive and diffusive panels, so we do all the calculations behind what looks identical and uniform all the way across. And so, we're putting fabric in here.
Right.
And then we use diffusers in here where we can control the color of the light. And as you might imagine, when people are watching on this screen, the lights in the front all go down, these dim down, and it's brighter in the back, and it makes this really, really cool look. But it's a neat way to do it. And actually, for the ceiling, there's a star ceiling in here that actually has depth to it. That also has got some absorptive and diffusive material in it.
Nice. So it's not just a hard surface then.
That's right.
All right, Scott, I love speakers. I love subwoofers. I know you got some firepower in this room. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so this is JBL synthesis speakers. And before I go through sort of exactly which ones are in, let's just pause for a second and talk about why would you want to use a compression driver, which is what JBL synthesis does, and they're most well known for. In a large theater room like this, you want to be able to have a lot of slam. And what happens is a compression driver has way more efficiency than like a silk dome driver.
Sure.
So when you send energy to it, its ability to go from really, really quiet to just bam and just smack you in the chest is unbelievable. And it can hit you, and they can also control the dispersion really, really well. And you spend a lot of time on it, but the short version is this room has got big JBL synthesis SEL2s for the big three in the front, which have these 8-inch drivers in them, plus an 1.5-inch compression driver tweeter that really can play in. We've done measurements, and you can look at some of the B-roll of when we were doing it, of a plane that's designed in the tool that starts with where these tweeters are and then moves through the front wide here. This front wide is a matching JBL SCL7, which has 5.25-inch drivers in it, and then a compression driver that goes in at a 15-degree angle. And this is the part where the math becomes really cool. You've got a 15-degree angle, and it's got a spread that perfectly matches right in here so you can control it. Then we back up a little bit further, and we've got our side speakers right in here. These are actually SCL4s, 7-inch driver, matching compression driver coming in here. And then in the back, we've got SCL7s coming in, and actually, strangely enough, we have SCL6s, all of which match. And there's a lot of cool stuff the tool will do for you, and then we do in our own 3D designs that we do for people. But if you think about it, the tweeter's got to be over the people in the back. And it's got to come down so that every single person can hear it in here. Anyways, really, really cool system. Maybe what we do, we pause on that and maybe we switch to the subs for a second.
All right.
Okay, so I'm pulling this off, which my guys won't like, but you'll see something cool here. Actually, not just looking at the sub, I want to show right here. See the magnet here?
Yeah.
The magnet here. When you got a high performance theater, you don't want stuff shaking. And so you'll see we'll use magnets to hold everything on. And these are not light magnets. These are super, super strong magnets. This is the JBL SSW2. So it's got two 12-inch subs, and you'll see it's ported here. These, and there's always this, we could get into long debates about, how big do you want the drivers, and is a bigger driver slower, whatever. But I do think it's fun for people to think about. You and I were talking about in the car, sort of coming over. Do you do ported or not?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so here you've chosen to use ported for this large room. Why'd you do that?
Yeah. So when you have a really, really big room like this, if you're going to base load the room, which you sometimes want to be able to do, having ported gives you an ability you generally can't get with something that's not ported. What you got to make sure is that the port can get down low enough, because once you get below the tuning of the port, all of a sudden you have usually a pretty big drop off. But these things are obviously monsters and unbelievable. And there's actually we got two in the front and then two more in the back. And so the room just totally loads when you want it to.
Now, Scott, I know a lot of people have different varying opinions on what kind of seating they want in their theater room. Some want couches, some want a love seat. I'm a big fan of theater seating because I figure I can get the couch in my living room. And so here you've got your own theater seats that you designed, and you did a massive focus group. You asked people like me, homeowners, what do you want what do you have in your seats that you wish you had? And so you did all of this controlled feedback from them to find out what things can we do to make the best possible chair for you. And so we'll talk about some of those features. And so I did a video last year here. We went over all the features. I'm gonna see some of them, how many I can remember. And then if I miss any, you fill me in.
Yeah, you bet.
So one thing, I love the fact that you typically have two choices on your controls. You can either put them on the side or you can put them on the top. And there's varying opinions on which works best. But again, you went to the focus group. You said, hey, what do you like? And sometimes, your legs are in the way, or what I found a lot of times when you recline, these controls get hidden. They kind of get
That's
stuck
right.
underneath the seat. The other negative is, let's say you're charging your phone, and again, that's easy to break off that USB. So having it up here removes that. And then you've got, of course, all your normal controls. You can recline, you've got lumbar support, we've got the headrest, and that is key, man. I love being able to, when you recline, naturally your head wants to go towards the ceiling. So by having that support in the headrest, you can now get your head perfectly aligned with your TV or this big massive projection screen. We got USB up here so we can charge our phone. Will that charge, I'm curious, will that charge like a PS4 controller, PS5 controller? Do you know?
It does, actually. So I have a PS5 in my house, and I use that to control.
I love that because not everybody does that. And that's a big thing for me. And then, of course, we've got, you can put accessories here, and you guys have one of the coolest accessories. Check this out. So this is unlike any of them you've ever seen. So not only is it larger, I like the fact that we've got this little ridge right here, so that keeps stuff from sliding off. Most of them are just flat. And I'm scared to put anything on mine, to be honest with you, because they'll just go floop, and they'll be right on my floor. But this is beautiful. It's oval in shape. It's got this nice soft rubber feel. And then we've got a little indentation here to keep your drink there. So I love the fact that, you know, you're thinking outside the box. This isn't what everybody else is doing. And again, a lot of that is coming from the feedback from your customers and even maybe future customers in that focus group. We've got vegan leather.
Yep.
So that's different.
Yeah.
Most people do just the regular leather. Why'd you choose vegan leather?
Well, there's a few reasons. One is just from an environmental standpoint. As you know, we wrote over here my Rivian.
Yeah.
And it's what Tesla and Rivian and a lot of manufacturers are going to. It's much more environmentally friendly. But the other thing is that it's a uniform look. And if you spill something on it, you wipe it up. It's just, you're not worrying about destroying leather or anything else. It basically lasts, you know, an incredible long amount of time.
Yeah. What else did I miss on these?
My gosh, you know this well. But if you're interested in it, you should check out Michael's video. He did a great video. I'm sure you'll post it in the link in the description. I mean, you nailed it. I'll say one more thing on the dimming.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
If I hit this button, there's a light that comes up here and comes up under the chair. It's really important to have a dimmable one so you can see I can hit at different levels and turn it down. If you have lights in the chair, you don't want it reflecting on that screen. And so it needs, we spent time on what is that dimmable level. And we tried to match what everyone wanted. And as part of the focus group, it's interesting, we brought ourselves in. Like you were talking about that tray table. I was always having my popcorn go off. And if my wife had a glass of wine, I was scared to death we're going to knock it on the floor. And so that rubber really basically grabs the way it's designed. Yeah. So no, you nailed it. You nailed it.
Y'all have done a great job with these seats.
So why don't we bring out the remote and we'll talk a little bit about Control 4.
All right, Scott, so we're looking at the Control 4 remote. Tell us what's so special about Control 4.
Yeah, so this enables everything to be automated in the room. So for a homeowner, all they got to do is hit their watch, hit Kaleidescape, and everything knows what to do. The Mad VR comes on, the amplifiers come on, the projector comes on, everything does what it needs to do. And now I've got full control using this remote with my simple, stop, play, navigate, guide buttons. And so it's a really, really cool option. And then what you'll see here, if I back up, we can pre-program for people on their remotes, and we do this both for people that are in, near our stores, but also people across the country. You'll see that we can control lighting and all the lights, but you'll notice this Trinnov button.
Right.
Why don't you and I talk a little bit about what's going on here with these 4 different setups in Trinnov?
So I'm looking at the remote. I see 4 options here. We've got Evan EQ, Vanilla EQ, what in the world? Heron EQ, Leon EQ. What's that all about?
Yeah, so this is a really fun discussion. You and I were talking about this earlier. There's a lot of math and science that goes into calibrating a room, and as you know, we got great calibrators. We all fight to see who's the best. What the Trinnov allows you to do, and some other processors do, but in particular with Trinnov, is you can do multiple calibrations in multiple profiles. So as an example, if you knew sometimes you were going to come in a room like this, and as you know, it's got a Kaleidescape on it, but you were going to listen to like a concert.
Right.
on Kaleidescape, and you might want that just in 2-channel.
Yep.
Or you might want to plug in a turntable and just listen to 2-channel. Then you might have a profile that's set up that sounds right for that. And then you might have a different one that's for full Atmos that you want for watching an action movie.
Sure.
But in particular, these 4 settings are the profiles for the calibration of the audio and the room correction. And so I find this fascinating because you and I both have listened to a lot of rooms.
Yep.
And I go in and calibrate a lot of rooms. I also listen to rooms that our team has calibrated. And what I find is this. There's the scientific calibration, which means you take the microphone, and so in this case, the Trinnov mic, we can calibrate it. That vanilla one is exactly what Trinnov produces using a traditional Harman curve.
Correct.
Which, as you know, is a little bit more bass boost, and then drops off, and then drops off a little bit higher. And that's, in theory, what people prefer hearing. But here's the thing. Someone who's 20 years old has different hearing capability than someone who's 50.
Right.
And so if we make it exactly what the engineers did, that may not be what one person perceives and hears is not what someone else does. And so what we're trying to achieve is what sounds best to you, whoever's living in it. So one of the things we really wanted to show people here is we did the traditional, Harman curve.
Right.
We then had John Herron, who's, he's going to be speaking on the panel this weekend at Audio Advice Live, and he is the Trinnov guy. And he came in and calibrated it. Then the one that says Evan, he's one of the engineers we have here who believes people prefer bass in movie theaters. Yep, this is
That's
you.
me,
And I prefer a little more bass myself. And so he calibrated, brought up the bass to a level that I think a lot of people love. And then the one that says Leon, as you know, Leon is incredibly precise. And he was for those of you who don't know Leon, he was the founder of Audio Advice 45 years ago.
That's awesome.
And still loves this stuff. And so he and John, who runs the retail floor here in Raleigh, together calibrated and made this really, really precise. So if you get someone in here who's like, man, I want it exactly precise and nailed down, they have that 4th model. And we'll take people through so they can understand that this is all about what sounds good to you.
Yeah. And there's what everybody recommends, but then there's also personal preference. There's taste. And that's the great thing about this hobby is you have the flexibility of catering it to you. We want you to be pretty close to the guidelines. Don't go crazy on it, but have some flexibility. Use what sounds best to you, looks best to you, make it your own space. And you guys and your team are awesome because you can help my audience to design their home theater. If you're thinking about building a home theater, check out their website. There's a free builder. But then if you want to go even further, your team can get on a call with them, get on some emails, design a full 3D rendering, show you exactly, and we'll probably show this room.
We'll show this room. We'll show how we did it.
What it looks like and what you'll get. And then what I love about your showroom, things like this are few and far between. I don't have anything like this in Florida. I might move to Raleigh. This place is like a home theater and 2-channel, just enthusiast's dream, man. You've got multiple home theaters here, from a living room setup to more of a budget friendly, and then an intermediate, and then you've got this big, massive home theater here. A lot of cool toys to play with, and your staff, bar none, is just absolutely phenomenal.
Well, I appreciate it. One of the things, as you've seen, just in this Raleigh showroom, and we've got one in Charlotte, we've got one in Wilmington, North Carolina, and there'll be more coming. But if you just come to this one, we have literally 4 different theaters that you saw. That someone can walk in and say, I want a 100-inch television one because they don't have a place for a projector. Then they walk up to a 120-inch projector screen that's 16 by 9. So they can experience what that would be. Then they can step up to one that is a 2.4, and then they can move from one that doesn't have Atmos to do. So we honestly have people come from all around the country that maybe they're visiting here for work, and maybe they're doing it themselves, or they're working with someone else across the country, and we're totally fine with people just coming in here and using this as a place to figure out what do they want in their home. And as you said, you've worked with our designers before. For those of you who are do-it-yourselfers, we're happy to provide free resources all over the website, the design tool, and then even work with you remotely, whether you need us to do install with you or you do it yourself. No, we're happy to do whatever's helpful for people because we love what theaters do for people and bringing happiness to them.
Well, you guys are leading the space, man. I love what you do. I love what their channel stands for. So make sure you're subscribed to them. We've got more awesome content coming from Audio Advice Live, as well as just some other great things here in the home theater space. Hope you guys have an incredible week. God bless, and we will catch you in the next video.